Okay, so I just wanted to make a video reviewing what we talked about today on the live Zoom session for anybody who just wants to be able to go back and review it, or for anyone who missed it today. So today we talked about this new way of factoring called dots, which is the difference of two perfect squares. It's written up here on the top. So the first thing we need to talk about is a perfect square, which is just a number times itself. So I've listed here the first 13 perfect squares. So we did 1 times 1, that's how we got 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. All the way up to here, which is 13 times 13. Okay, I just wanted you guys to have the list of the first 13 because these are the ones that you're going to see most frequently. There is a square root button on your calculator. If you hit second and then the x squared button, that'll pull up this square root sign. So when you're doing these problems at home, you should have downloaded the calculator app. Also on your regular phones, if you turn your phone to the side, there's more options there, and the square root symbol should be there for you. I want to talk now about taking the square root of a variable. So for dots, we're going to be talking about perfect squares, and any exponent that has an even number perfect square, even number exponent, any variable that has an even number as the exponent is a perfect square. And to find the square root, we're going to take the number as the exponent and divide it by 2. So for this first one, x squared, the square root of that is x because x times x equals x squared. Okay, and when you take the square root of something, the square root symbol is then gone because we took the square root. So the square root of x to the 4th is x squared. Square root of x to the 6th is x to the 3rd because 3 is half of 6. Same thing here, 4 is half of 8, and 5 is half of 10. So this way of factoring is called the difference of two perfect squares. Okay, you need to have both of these things over here. Both of your terms must be perfect squares, and everything about the term. So if there's a coefficient, the coefficient must also be a perfect square, and there has to be a minus sign. This is very important here. If you're missing either piece, then you cannot do dots, difference of two perfect squares. Okay, you have to have two perfect squares and you have to have a minus sign. So looking at this first problem, you're going to take the square root of your first term. So the square root of x to the 4th is x squared. Then you're going to take the square root of your second term. So the square root of 36 is 6 because 6 times 6 is 36. Then to write your answer factored, you're going to do two sets of parentheses. One of them gets a plus in the middle, one gets a minus. Okay, because our x to the 4th came first, we're going to put the square root of that in the beginning. So x squared, x squared. Our 36 came second, so that means our 6 is going to go in the back. And that's all you're doing for factoring with dots. I will show you 10. I mean b. Said 10 because that's the square root of 100. So again, the square root of your first term is 10. The square root of our second term is just x. You set up two sets of parentheses. One gets a plus, one gets a minus. In front goes the 10 because the 100 came first. In the back goes the x because x squared came second. That's your final answer. Okay, if one of your terms is not a perfect square, you cannot do this method, or if there's a plus sign instead of a minus. Okay, I do want to show you letter C. I just want to show one that has a coefficient. So here, 9 also has to be a perfect square, and it is for this problem. So we're going to do the square root of 9x squared. So the square root of 9 is 3 because 3 times 3 is 9. The square root of x squared is x because x times x is x squared. Then the square root of 16, which we've talked about before, is 4. You set up your two sets of parentheses. One gets a plus, one gets a minus. Okay, the 3x comes first because 9x squared was first. The 4 goes second because the 16 came second. And that's it. That's all we're doing for the difference of two perfect squares.